Good morning. It is 10 a.m. Central on Wednesday, September 25th. I hope y'all are having a great day. I can't wait to see who all shows up for this chat. I'm very excited about that for sure. So today, I almost titled this part one. So I'm just going to say that right now. It's probably part one because this is a big topic. It's a big, hot topic. It's a big topic, and I have lots of different thoughts and things I want to share with you. I actually have some personal things I want to share with you, and I don't think I can squeeze it all in. And and I'm not talking for an hour. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it shorter. So I'm sure that this is not the end of the discussion. So having said that, what we're talking about today is fasting, and it is a big topic, and it's complex, and it can be very personal. It can be very charged, which is so silly, but it can be very charged. And so just know that if I don't address, I just love seeing who all is showing up for this talk, especially with the way I advertised it. I know that was really cheeky, the way I advertised it. And I don't normally do that. Y'all know I don't, but I couldn't help myself. I just had to. I had to do it that way. I've been thinking about that for probably a month, honestly. So just know if I don't touch on what you have questions about or what you've experienced or whatever, I hopefully will by the time this is all said and done. We'll have a few more talks about it for sure. Let's put it that way, okay? So today, the main thing that I really want to hit home and that I want to share is kind of to help you know that fasting of whatever sort, it comes in lots of different sizes, so to speak. And so that is one thing that when you're talking to someone or having a discussion with someone about fasting, you might want to define the term first. That's a key thing that we learn in having a discussion or a conversation is make sure you're both talking about the same thing or talking about it in the same way, because there's lots of different ways that you can go about fasting, and there's lots of different ways to think about it and all that. And so just first of all, when you're having that discussion, make sure you're both on the same page about what you mean by that. And that's a big deal. So let's just start off with this. Can we all agree, please? I hope we can all agree on this one. I don't know. Maybe we can't, but I hope by the end of these talks we can. Can we all agree that fasting is not a fad? That is the silliest thing I've ever heard, is when someone calls it a fad. Of course it's not a fad. It's been around forever. Now, you may say, well, yes, but that is religious fasting. No, that isn't even what I'm talking about. I mean, that can be part of it, and that's certainly been around a long time, and that's for a particular reason. But I mean, I just mean talking about, like, believe me, like a long time ago, thousands and thousands of years ago, people weren't eating all day, every day. They couldn't. They couldn't. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing and we want to go back to that, but let's not call it a fad, okay? It's not a fad. And even if we were talking about it strictly apart from religious reasons or like environmental reasons, maybe that's what we could call that, I guess. Environmental reasons, habitat reasons, I don't know, history reasons. Even apart from those two, the idea of using some form of fasting for health reasons is like not new. It's been around a long time. Now, here's what I was I was talking to my membership mamas this morning. I've got my stack of books here to show you. And I'm going to show them. I'm going to show all of them to you for a reason in just a second. But, I kind of ignored, there's no kinda. I ignored any research data, information, discussion that had anything to do with fasting in any book I read for a very long time, up until probably, I don't know, 9 to 12 months ago. Ignored it completely, because it didn't fit the narrative that I had bought into and that I was believing at the time. And so then finally, and y'all know, I don't teach about it. I haven't taught about it. So I want to make that clear too. And even in the Foxy Foundation group, we're not talking about it. No, not really, and we're not doing it. So I don't want you to think that this is me trying to convince you to do it. That is not what this is. This is me talking to you about just that we have people in our group who are fasting or who have been doing it a long time, and they've had great success, and we need to accept that. And we need to cheer them on because it's working for them. It might not work for you, and you might not need to do it, and that's okay. That's just a tool. And so it's not a fad. It is a tool, okay? It just is. And just like CGMs are a tool, they're not a fad. They're not. They've been around for a long time. It's just that now the exciting part is they're more accessible, and they will become more and more accessible. They're not a fad. They're a tool. Does that mean everybody needs one? No, you don't have to get one. I don't have one at this time. I don't. And I thought about getting one, and then I decided not to right now because I wanted you to know you don't have to have one to make changes and make progress and get healthier. You don't. But can it be a good tool? Yeah, it can be for some, for sure. And with that, I want you to keep this idea in mind too. Like with the CGMs, I know that with, like, I've heard the glucose goddess talk about this multiple times. She certainly has worn one. She certainly wears one often. She has definitely encouraged people to give that a try. Here's what she said though. She doesn't want people to become obsessive about it if it's going to be a problem for them. So she doesn't necessarily think that you should wear one all the time forever, but for a little while to kind of see how you're doing, she does, okay? Fasting is kind of like that, I think personally, at this point. It might be something that can really help you for a time, for a season, for a reason. You'll hear me say that a lot. I think it's got good reasons for good seasons for the right persons. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean everyone needs to do it at the same time, in the same way, or even for the same reasons. Okay. And so that's really my big idea I want to get across to you, because we do have many in this group who are interested in it. They're doing it. They've been doing it. They're having success, or maybe they're having struggles and they're trying to work through that. And that is a conversation I want you to feel free to have in this group, because quite frankly, and I'm sorry, it already scrolled up, but I see you talking about sleep. And I can't see who it is because it already scrolled off my screen, and I'm so sorry. But yeah, let's have that conversation in here. I'm not a fasting expert, so I might not be able to answer your question or help you directly, but there's lots of ladies in this group who are fasting experts and or very experienced in different types of fasting in different ways, and they may be able to help you. That's what this free group is all about. We're supporting each other. We're trying to help each other. We're trying to encourage each other. And if you aren't able to help that person with that question, or you don't know the answer, or you don't even want to hear about it, you just keep scrolling. Because this group isn't for you to tell somebody, oh, well, you shouldn't do that. That's not what this group is for, okay? Because there's lots of different tools for lots of different mamas, and quite frankly, there's lots of different ways to get from point A to point B. It's not just from point A to point B. There's lots of different ways to get there, and that is something that the more I read, I should say reread. The more I reread this stack of books here I'm going to show you, books I've read and ignored things in, and the more I listen, but also the more I see you ladies sharing, some of my dear coaching friends and some of my mod mamas sharing, the more I'm like, okay, this fasting thing, it can work. It can backfire, and we will definitely talk about that, because we're going to talk about maybe when it's not the right time or the right person or the right season or whatever. We're going to talk about that too. Definitely. That'll probably be a whole nother chat because I have a personal experience to share with you on that one. But it does work for different reasons and seasons and persons for sure. Okay. And so, some of these books are going to be quite familiar. I'm going to start with one that's actually the oddball. Well, not exactly the oddball. I'm going to show you a stack of books. Some of these you'll have seen before, and some of them you might not have noticed me talking about before. Of my books that I grab and maybe reference or reread sections of or look at, I would say, just looking at my shelf, this is my desk. It has a shelf above the desk part. This is like my favorite books. Okay, I have some other books over there that I don't want to get rid of, but this is my favorites. And not counting the cookbooks, because cookbooks are cookbooks. The cookbooks are in the middle. Yeah, over half of my favorite books that have really helped me talk about fasting in a positive light in some way. Over half of them. And believe me, when I bought these books, many of them, that was not why I bought them. Some of them I did because I was interested at that point. But some of these books are not new to me. I bought them a year or 2 or 3 ago. And again, I skipped the fasting parts. I mean, I read it, but it was just like, whatever. I didn't pay attention. But when I started pulling these books for this talk today, and I started looking at just the wide variety of experts and soapboxes, can I call it that? And I don't mean that in a bad way. But when I started looking at the variety of experts and soapboxes that included some kind of positive information and discussion about fasting, that really was profound to me. Okay. And what I mean by soapbox is like, you know, every book you read that's a health book has like a point they're trying to get across. They have a point. It doesn't mean they don't think the other things or aspects aren't important to your health and weight loss, but you know, they can only talk about so much. They have to focus on something. Can I give an example? Like, you know, the parables in the Bible, they're meant to tell one truth, right? They're not meant to tell everything. They're meant to illustrate one truth. That's kind of how I think about these books. They're meant to focus on one thing, and they may have a little periphery things, but they're not meant to tell the whole story. And that's why it's so important to read widely and glean from several people, because they all have their soapbox. If I want to learn about protein and muscle, I'm going to go to Dr. Lyon. I am. I really, really am. If I want to learn about sleep, and I know she talks about it a little bit because it's important. If I want to learn about sleep and sleep research and data, I'm going to go to Sean Stevenson's Sleep Smarter. You better believe it. If I want to learn about, what's another one? If I want to learn about hormones and hormone health for women, there's several ladies I may go to, but I probably won't go to Sean Stevenson for that one. Probably not. I might not even go to Dr. Fung for that one, right? So they all have their little soapboxes and things like that. But what all these books and people had in common is that they have some aspect of fasting, some form of it that they do encourage and talk about in a positive manner. That gives me pause to think, okay, maybe I need to at least be accepting that this may work for some people. Maybe I need to look at that and see, well, would I benefit from that? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's not my right season. Maybe I don't have the right reason. Okay. So the first book I want to show you, though, she doesn't actually talk about fasting, I don't think, in this book. However, in some of her other books, she does. I just don't happen to have them. Okay. But I know that she is a proponent of some form of fasting, and that is Sarah Gottfried. She is a proponent of some form, okay? Just not in that particular book. But I've heard her talk here, there, and yonder on podcasts and things. So that was the one oddball where she's not focused on it in that book. Again, that's an example of she's got something she's trying to get across in that book, and, you know, having fasting into that isn't part of it. In this book, what she's mainly talking about is really cleaning up your diet from toxins. That's really a lot of what she's talking about here, and the impact that those toxins or addictive type of things have on your hormones. It's an interesting book. It's really good. It's kind of hardcore, to be honest. All right, now the rest of these books in the stack specifically do mention fasting. Let's just go ahead and get the obvious ones out of the way. Why We Get Sick, obviously, talks about fasting and how to use it. How Not to Get Sick, obviously does. Those are Dr. Bickman's books. Okay? With that, his buddy, Dr. Jason Fung, The Obesity Code, great book. The Diabetes Code, excellent book, both of them. So good, so good. And then, of course, this one, Fast Like a Girl. Okay? We're going to talk more about that approach and her stuff in a different talk, okay? The good and the like, I'm not so sure. Okay? Those obviously talk about it, and those talk about it in different ways. Sean Stevenson's Eat Smarter talks about fasting, intermittent fasting. Okay? Oh, what else here? Let's see. Dr. Mary Haver, the Galveston Diet, talks about fasting. And when I say talk about it, I mean in a good way. Dr. Anna Kabeka, The Hormone Fix. This is a great book too. I love this one. You can see I've got it tabbed. Talks about fasting. And then lastly, I saved this one for last because it's newer and many of you have read it. Good Energy by Casey and Callie Means talks about fasting as well. Okay? It's not her main point of the book, but she does talk about that in there. So that's a lot of different experts from a lot of different fields, sort of, and a lot of different soapboxes and all that. And that just gives me pause. And it really should give all of us pause as well about it. It's not a fad. It is a tool. That doesn't mean you have to do it. And it doesn't mean that you should do it forever. It doesn't mean you should do it the same way from year to year or even week to week or even day to day. Okay, there's lots and lots and lots of different approaches to it. Okay, and so I'm going to just end with kind of touching on that a little bit with some different types of fasting approaches. It's really like whatever you want it to be. Some people talk about just delaying breakfast and not eating until later in the day. That's a very common one because a lot of us, we wake up in the morning. Let's say we wake up at 6 a.m. and we're just not hungry. We don't want to eat. We're not hungry. The idea of eat, and then now that we know we need to really be eating, protein and veggies and all these things for breakfast, it's not easy to do that when you've just woken up and you're not ready to eat. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about that for a minute. You just went, and hopefully you didn't eat a snack at 10 o'clock at night, but let's just say that you went to sleep at 10 p.m. and you woke up, 6, 7, 8 hours later. You just went 6, 7, 8 hours without eating. You wake up and you're still not hungry? Is that okay? Yeah, that's okay. That's the way your body's designed. Think about that. You just fasted. Oops. Whoops. You just fasted and you woke up and you're not ready to eat. So don't eat if you're not ready to eat. Don't do that. I don't know why we thought that was a good idea. That doesn't even make sense. Your body is not ready. It's not ready for food yet. Okay? It just isn't. It's like Dr. Fung says. Dr. Fung is really funny. He's got some great free YouTube videos. And he's like, eating when you're not hungry is stupid. Now, that's his words. But that's the way he'll tilt his little head and is like, that's stupid. Why would you eat when you're not hungry? Now, there is a caveat there, I will say. I know some of us are dictated by schedules, like if you work outside the home or you have to be somewhere. Some of us are dictated by schedules, and that is life, and that has to be taken into account. The other thing to consider is that, if you are if you are in a high stress season of life, like abnormal, like there's things going on, it's not good, and I've been there, done it. If you're engaged in a high stress season, if you know that your cortisol is wonked out, if you know that you have adrenal fatigue issues, I know it's called something else now, I always forget what it's called. If you know that and you're working on that, then fasting, especially fasting in the morning, fasting isn't really the best thing to do at that time. It's not your season, okay? We'll talk about that later on. So I do want to say that. But however, generally, let's say you wake up at 6 a.m. and you're just really, like, you're not ready to eat until maybe 9 a.m. Okay. That's just 3 hours after you woke up. That's not that late. That's not even fasting through breakfast. That's just waiting until your body is ready to eat. Great. That makes sense. And if you wait until your body is ready to eat, you'll be able to eat some good food. You'll be able to eat some good veggies and protein. It'll work a lot better. You'll be ready for it, for sure. And that is what's really important. At 7 a.m. in the morning, after you've been up for an hour, you can probably shove a muffin in your mouth. But would you want to eat, like, some fermented kraut and some tuna? I bet you wouldn't. But maybe by 9 a.m. you might be ready to give that a try, or some kind of equivalent to that, okay? So definitely delaying breakfast is an option, and it does work for some. It seems to work better for men than women to do that regularly, like day in and day out most of the time. Seems to work a little bit better. They have, different hormone ratios and things like that, and different things going on, and quite frankly they seem to handle their cortisol a lot better than we do. But that's not to say you couldn't do it, once or twice a week, but maybe just not every single day, perhaps. But that is an option, is to delay breakfast, depending upon if that's going to work for you or not. Another option that has got a lot of interesting support and kind of research behind it is closing the kitchen a lot earlier in the evening, and basically skipping supper or dinner, whatever you call it, that last meal of the day. That one actually has lots of great benefits and all that, but that one isn't as culturally easy to do, because typically we want to have a dinner with our family at the end of the day, right? And so that one is actually one that has some really good benefits, maybe even better than skipping breakfast, but it just doesn't work with family life, social life, things like that, not as well. But that's certainly a great option to look into. I've heard Dr. Bickman talk about that one, and he does think that one's probably the better one if you're going to do something like that, like an intermittent fasting. But he agrees. He's a family man, and he's like, but I'm a family man, so I'm not going to do that. He's got little kids and stuff. But that is an option. Even just like alternate day fasting, every other day you're fasting through the whole day, and that can look different. I mean, obviously, please drink water, but some people have different things that they may drink to get them through that day. So I don't want to get into that's kind of like the weeds. Like, can I have this to drink or that to drink? That's getting into the weeds for me on that. And there's a lot of different opinions about that. And it kind of depends on who you listen to and what your goal is and your reasons and things like that. But definitely you want to drink water, of course. You want to do that. Another approach that I think, this one is the one that honestly intrigues me the most and kind of appeals to me the most with fasting. It's just the idea of 1 day a week, maybe 2, but not back to back. But one or 2 days a week, having a 24-hour fast. And the rest of the time, the other 5 to 6 days a week, you're eating your wonderful food piece, 3 meals a day, and you're having just that 24-hour time. And 24 hours sounds like a lot, but remember, typically that is going to start after dinner the night before. And if you're building a food piece dinner and you're building it well, those cravings and urges to snack at night, they go away. They go away. I never would have thunk it, but they do. So then, like, let's say you eat supper around 6-ish, you close the kitchen and you go to bed, around 9 or 10 o'clock at night or whatever, you go to sleep. Well, all that time that you're sleeping counts. It counts as part of your fast. And so what that would look like is you eat dinner the night before and then you overnight fast, which we do all the time. So you're all fasting. Remember, you're all fasting. You're going 7 to 8 hours every day, if not more, fasting. And then you would not eat until dinner that evening. Now, dinner that evening probably will come around 6, but I could totally understand why dinner might be served at 4 o'clock that day. I could totally see that. But typically, that's a great way to do it too. However, with all of these different, and I'm sure there's others. Dr. Bickman and Dr. Fung, especially Dr. Fung, really get into some more, what would I call that? I don't know if I would call it clinical type fasting, but some more, I'll call it hardcore for lack of a better word. Dr. Bickman and Dr. Fung get into some more hardcore fasting regimens usually under a doctor's instruction or care or whatever in regards to reversing type 2 diabetes. Because obviously that's way more severe than simply, I think I'm becoming insulin resistant, which we want to stop and reverse. But obviously type 2 diabetes is when it's gone way too far. And so the regimen for reversing that as quickly and safely as possible involves the foods you eat and don't eat and some sort of kind of more regimented fasting regimen, okay? And they go into that in their books really well, really, really well. And I will say, I don't listen to Dr. Fung as much. I do like him though. But I have heard Dr. Bickman talk about it, and he talks about it in his most recent book a bit, in that the foods we eat and don't eat to reverse our insulin resistance, our prediabetes, our type 2 diabetes, wherever we're at on that spectrum, because that's what it is a spectrum. The foods we eat and don't eat, they will do the trick to reverse it. It's just that it will obviously take longer if you're type 2 diabetic, for example, than if you also incorporate some forms of fasting, okay? Obviously it will, but that doesn't mean if you're just adamantly against fasting, or if you are worried about it, or if, again, you're in that high season of stress, high cortisol, adrenal issues, then know that you can reverse your prediabetes and type 2 diabetes with food alone. You can. And you don't have to include the fasting. The fasting is just another tool that you can incorporate that will make things go faster. And of course, everybody's different. You would have to find the fasting regimen that would work best for you. And lastly, again, we're going to have more talks. I do want to wrap up. But lastly, I just want you to remember that if you are fasting, or if you even are entertaining the idea of it, you can try some different ways. It's not a contract. You don't have to do it that way forever. You don't have to do it that way every day or every week. You don't. And that was one thing I really liked about Dr. Pell's book. I remember her specifically. That's this one, Fast Like a Girl. I believe it's in her book. It may have been a talk, but I think she says something like, there is no failed fast. Does that ring a bell with anyone who's read her book? In that, okay, so maybe you were gonna fast today for 24 hours, but then you legitimately got hungry. Like you was hungry and you're like, okay, well, never mind. And so one thing I like about what she said is there is no failed fast. If you decide to eat healthy, eat smartly. And that's fine, okay? It's just a tool to use when it's the right time for you to use it or not. Food is still the biggest lever, okay? What we eat and what we don't eat is still the biggest lever, but fasting can be a tool. And again, and one of the things, I don't love everything about this book or her. I don't, but there's some things I do like. I like that she points that out. There's no failed fast. There's lots of different ways to do this. And you shouldn't do it the same way all the time. That's usually not going to be the best option, especially for women with our hormone changes and fluctuations and all the things. You don't need to do it the same way all the time, every day, every week, every month. And that's okay. All right. So that's the key thoughts there. I want you to think about this as I wrap up. If you were to, we've talked about how jeans, if we buy a pair of jeans and how, a size 10 in this brand and a size 10 in that brand and a size 10 in this brand, vastly different. And how even if we were all a size 10, if we went jean shopping, we'd all come out with different frustrations and stories and different brands and all that kind of stuff. And that's because we're all different. We're so much alike. We all have hips and we all have booty butts and we all have legs, but yet we have all that in common, but yet we can't wear the same pair of jeans. Most likely not. Even if we were the same size, we can't wear the same pair of jeans. And I want you to think about fasting kind of like that. There's lots of different brands of fasting, lots of different brands, lots of different ways to do it. And no one particular way is going to work for every single person in the group. And then, some of y'all might not even want to do it at all. And that's fine too. Because do you have to wear jeans? No, you don't. No, you don't. You can wear a skirt. You can wear shorts. You can wear leggings. I mean, there's lots of other things you can do, right? That gets the job done of covering up what's going on down there, right? So I just want you to think about that. Lots of different ways to do it. Some fit better for certain mamas than others for sure, okay? This is not the end of the discussion. If you want to drop some ideas, thoughts, or questions on this video in the comments, feel free to do that. Like I said, I'm not a fasting expert by any means. We have some in the group who are, and I can definitely point you to some of the coaches that are actually certified in talking about at least the Fast Like a Girl approach for sure. I will say, as I learn more from Dr. Bickman through my insulin IQ certification, I do anticipate learning more about, his thoughts and research and data on fasting. But I have not been able to get to that point yet, other than just reading his books and listening to his podcasts and videos and things like that. So, but I'm open to learning about it because it's not a fad. It's been around forever. It's a tool though. And it's a tool that does work well for some and a tool that not everybody needs to use at the same time in the same way. So that's part 1 of my thoughts about the F word. So I appreciate y'all joining me. And I hope that was a little helpful just to kind of set the stage, a little bit about how we can talk about it, think about it, consider it, or, encourage those who are doing it and not have to worry about doing it if you don't want to do it. Okay. All right, ladies, thanks for joining me. I appreciate y'all. Bye-bye.